AI cost Shane 16.
There it is. You started without even knowing. AI cost Shane $16,000. We got to be careful.
True story.
And you think about that, that's 5% of your job. That's a big number, 5%.
Yeah. We know there's
it could have been much bigger.
Everyone's using AI. Everyone's pushing AI. Use AI. Use AI. Everyone's ads look the same. Everyone's posts look the same. But let's ignore that because AI is here. It's going to be part of society. It's not going anywhere. But it just cost Shane $16,000 on a job. Something he thought he was doing right. He thought he was doing the research. So we're going to get into that in a second. Obviously, this is the Lighting Trade School podcast. You've got me, Captain Matt, up in upstate Albany area of New York. We got Glo Daddy Shane Duffy down in Texas. And we've got the Illuminator Nate Mullen out in California. So all the coasts.
AKA Nazi Germany.
Okay.
I hope Governor Newsom hears that.
Oh,
yeah, that's good for the algorithms. Thanks, Nate.
No.
That's good for the censorships.
It's the first 1 minute of this podcast. Anyway, well, let's get right into it, right? We don't need to do the pleasantries. We all just actually talked on the Illuminati Lounge Club. $47 a month, hour-long call, which today's was like an hour-and-a-half long call. We were talking about, we brought on a Facebook marketing person that went through the grind. We kind of grinded question after question. It's pretty cool. Anyway, Illuminati Lounge, check out lightingtradeschool.com, join the club, become a member of the Illuminati. Shane, AI cost you $16,000. What the fuck? I just heard this mere moments ago.
Yes, you haven't even heard this story.
No.
So, with this big job, right, that we were doing, which we successfully completed, set a world record. We'll have the official stamp, shortly, but super epic job. I don't know if you saw the video, but at the end here, as we're like nearing the end, the last couple of days, the city points out, and this is kind of a hard lesson learned that I hope maybe some listeners will take something, because I learned something big from this. So the city points out there's no base covers on the poles that we put up. And that was intentional. It wasn't even in the quote. As a matter of fact, I verbally told them a couple of times, hey, you guys are probably going to want some base covers. It wasn't in their budget at the time. Part of the proposal wasn't part of the proposal. But the problem is it's a square base plate, 12 by 12 of hard steel, 3/8 thick, and has really sharp corners. And because there's leveling nuts at the bottom, it's elevated an inch or whatever off of the ground. So it becomes technically like a tripping hazard. If you were wearing sandals, or something, you could kind of get your foot stubbed on it. It could even draw blood. I mean, the corners are kind of sharp. Or if you had some really nice shoes, it could just scuff your shoes pretty good. So the city tells me, and this is not the first time they've mentioned it, and I've mentioned to them, hey, this could be dangerous, and it's just aesthetically less pleasing. So at the end, they're saying, we expected you, Shane, to present a design that was safe to the general public, and this is not safe. This is on you. You need base covers. And my response was, well, no, it's not in the text. I didn't mention it. I have told you guys throughout the process, you're going to want some base covers. Problem is, on a big job, sometimes you have several points of contact. And I don't even remember who that conversation was with. But now the city politicians are making this, and this is kind of a big deal. This is at the end of the job. And we, are owed, a very high six-figure check. So what can we do? We have all the power at this point. So I tell them, no, it's not included. It wasn't in the text. That's not something I can just eat. We'll also add that this took way longer than expected. So we just didn't have the same profit margins that I thought we would start with. The city knows this. I've told them. So, and feel free to stop me and ask any questions here. So we go back and we look at the contract. What's written is what's gold. And in the contract, I clearly specified everything that the pole comes with. The gussets, the anchors, the cap on the top, just kind of everything. And a base plate is not mentioned. However, my mistake is I made an AI generated just image of what the pole with some guide wire cabling at the top is going to look like and how it's going to be mounted in the sidewalk, showing the anchors. And in that image, it had a line that said base cover.
Oof.
And I mean, even the pole itself was like 15 foot versus like we did 18 feet. The picture was a square pole. We did round poles. Like everything about it's different. I just put it in there for a visual so they could see. And I, in hindsight, right, should have saw that there's a base cover on it and didn't really notice it and just X'd it out or drew over it. I could have done something. So the city comes back after doing research, after I told them it's not included, and they said, hey, there's a picture attached to your proposal that shows this. Now, me, as the city and as the city's lawyer, interpret this as something that is included. It is
Wow.
my
Yeah.
job. I mean, his exact words is my job as a city lawyer, city assistant manager, to make sure the city gets a safe product for the citizens and we get everything that's included on the proposal. I was like, well, okay, I get that. I respect that. And he says, it's your job, right, to defend that. So, you know, you send me any documentation you have and give me a response, but we are expecting this to be done. I was like, crap. So I did rush. I called the metal guy. I got a fabricated base made on the fly and went and picked it up, showed it to them. They approved it. It was white. It was ugly. It was raw, but it was quick. And then they approved it. So it is going to cost me $16,000 to get these and then the labor to put them on. So what am I supposed to do here? Right? Like I could fight it. I could pay a lawyer. That's probably going to cost me probably close to 10 grand anyways. And the city, like, I don't want to damage the relationship. Like they've been great to work with. And I want to do multiple cities. So it's kind of like, what am I stuck with? This stupid little AI drawing makes it seem as if it's included or there's at least an argument for it, even though I don't think that's enough.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, I can definitely see both sides, right? I know, like attaching a picture, or like we attach CAD drawings. I could see how flipping through, they didn't read every word, right? But looking at pictures, we all know. I know on all my contracts, I'm like, did you read what it says? I'm like, no, I just saw the pictures. I mean, I think 9 times out of 10, that's what's happening, right? Yeah, looks good. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to label that just an example, not indicative of real life, all that. But yeah, man, that's tough. So 16 grand in product only for these caps, huh?
Yeah. So there's another small lesson in there that Nate and I were just talking about as well. So I'm almost like I take this kind of like as an insult because I've mentioned it and I've verbally talked about it, but it's not written. And if it's not written, it didn't happen. And I'm like, hey, I've served you guys. Like I've gone over and beyond. Let's look at this proposal. Like it mentions tree trimming. We are not responsible for trimming trees, yet we've trimmed 20 of your trees. We didn't charge you a dime. It would have slowed us down. We just kept doing it. We had the lift. We were right there anyways. There's like nothing. I said, even here, there's a line item for an electrician. You're probably going to need an electrician for several things. We did all that ourselves, saved you guys money. It says 16-foot poles. We upgraded to 18-foot poles. We didn't charge you guys any money. And while the material was kind of nominal in that extra expense, but getting ladders up that extra 2 feet was a lot. So we had to rent a scissor lift to make it easier so we could move faster. And that was a big expense. Didn't charge you guys. There's this other section right here that's not even on the proposal or mentioned, but we did it. It was an extra 500 feet. That's technically an extra $10,000 of stuff we did because y'all verbally told me I was on the agreement I was going to do this. But if I'm only going off of the contract, it was not on there. And I did it, even though you guys mentioned it kind of after the fact. So like I'm giving him a list of all the stuff that I feel like I've done and served you guys. And his response was, which was the lesson. His response was, Shane, that's great. He's like, but I didn't ask you for that. You didn't stop and submit a change order. You didn't charge it. You've already done it. Like, all of that is irrelevant to this issue.
Mm.
Well, gosh, I mean, that's kind of cold, but I get it. Like, I didn't ask for permission to trim the trees. I didn't stop everything we're doing and say, hey, you guys didn't trim the trees. It's going to be an extra $5,000. I didn't go back and make a change order, and I should have. Even if there was no charge, I should have made it, or something had some kind of documentation to it. So if something like this pops up, well, I at least have some kind of documented evidence that we went over and beyond.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think I've got several comments to where obviously lessons learned, this and that. And this goes back to, construction, which is what you just did, technically not working for a homeowner that you're in and out in a couple of days. Is, we always have, right or wrong, we always have the intent, right, of doing what's best for our company, typically, but is then in best of getting the job done. You're out of town, you've got lifts, you got rental fees, you got your paying, you're renting a house, you've got guys working extremely hard, it's costing you a lot of money, and you have a time completion date. So of course those trees are in your deal. So you're just what you're doing, the best interest of the client. Well, when you look at a city, the city always does what's in the best interest of the city, and they always do the intent, the letter of the law, right? And they will take time. They will stop, right, that project because of the letter of the law. Well, they don't, and you're sitting there wanting to get the job done. So there's only one way to minimize that problem, really. And as far as being proactive, is that you have to request in the beginning of the job daily or weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings, right? So you can always, obviously talk about what's happening, what are the concerns, what are my issues, right? And you have to bring that to their attention, right? So you can hopefully stay on top of the change orders, right? Because you're kind of fucked if you do, fucked if you don't. You stop the job. You now just delayed it for the tree trimming, right? And now that takes 3 days,
That
right?
costs
Yeah.
just doing it.
It costs more money than doing it. So that's where the weekly or daily meetings come into the deal, right? So, and when you think about what you said, they owe you money right now. So when you think about, I'm sure on your proposal, you had a draw schedule. And on that draw schedule, it said, hey, I need 50% when the material shows up. Hey, I need whatever when this is done. And then you get to the end of it, you probably didn't have more than 10% owed. So the most they could be into you is 10%. Now they hold all the cards and they're into you for a large sum of money, which I'm going to think is 30 or 40%. Somehow you as an owner allowed that to happen, right? Because that's what we do, right? Where if that draw scheduled, you were going to get 85% when you had 85% of the work done, you would have sent them a telegram, right? Which is, or a text and said, hey, we're pulling off the job tomorrow, right? Because we haven't been paid. Now they don't have the leverage. Because that's the problem to where what you already said, they're going to owe you, it's going to cost you 20 grand. It's going to cost you 10 grand for attorney. If they only owed you a 5 or 10%, they don't have the leverage anymore. Now it's easy to negotiate it and it'd be simple, right? So I just say it's our own fault a lot of times because we're too nice, right? Because in the back of our mind, we want to get the next job. Well, I learned by getting fucks about millions of dollars in construction. I don't care about the next job. I care about this job, right? That's my number one thing, right?
You're so right. And I'm thinking back, I still, my kickback is like, well, Nate, I couldn't have done that. It was very, very clear from the beginning. We had to finish this job in September.
Mm-hmm.
Very big rush.
Right.
Not only did they want it done soon, but we were booked in October and November. There's zero chance we could make it back. It's like we had an internal deadline, on top of their deadline. And if I could not wait 3 days, we were there traveling. It's not like we even
boy, do I understand that. So I always want to make the point to where look at how lucky you are that it only is going to cost you 20 grand. What if you use that photo, which already had 3 issues on it? Square, not round. Height, your differential. Anchor, and the base cover. there could have been an additional thing in there that 20 grand could have gone to 75,000. Now you're in the hole, losing money because of an internal issue that you need to get off that job, right? So you're extremely lucky. So, so to minimize that, which, this is very typical, right? So now maybe in your proposal, you have in your proposal, which I have done a million times, that, based upon, not so much it's the scope of work, but it's part of the standards are telling you, hey, you got to have this job done by an X amount date, because we have a grand opening. I remember doing 5, they went bankrupt a long time ago, but it was called The Good Guys. It was like a national chain of electronic stores, right? Back before Amazon and Best Buy, but it's like a Best Buy. They had a grand opening for 5 stores, and I was doing 4 of them here in Southern California. And we had signed liquidated clauses, liquidated damages if we didn't have the grand opening. Well, my schedule is predicated upon everybody else in front of me. So I can't tell you how many telegrams I sent, how many meetings I had to say, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to be I'm not making it, right? I am not going to be able to work 24 hours a day to get my electrical stuff done, right? Because electricians are the first guys in, last guys out. So I got an extra $150,000 by accelerating my team and working harder. So, but you have to have that in your proposal. If you have a drop dead date, forget that internally, you got to get done for Christmas. But if they have a drop dead date, that's predicated upon a schedule, right? And when you stop that schedule for whatever reason, because there's a change order, you just added 3 days or you're entitled to more money. And those are things that, right, that you have to do proactively, so the unknown doesn't bite you in the ass. I remember having a form called an unfortunate situation form, right? So where there's always an unfortunate situation. Hey, there's an unfortunate situation that these trees are in our way. That's not my fault, right? I didn't bid this. I can't give you this, right? So, because, it's one thing losing 20,000. It's another thing losing a couple 100,000, which obviously it can happen. It's just all relative. So, but, I do like that you're sharing some of these issues so we can bring up these massively important things and issues, right?
So when we talk about the change orders, let's say Shane's up on a scissor lift, needs to trim a tree. It's not in the contract. Should he trim the tree and then send the city an email that says a $0 invoice, or should he stop work?
Well, no, I think Shane said there was 20 trees. So obviously you do that one tree right now, you're down one tree. Instantly you get a hold of the city, you text them, they're right there. There's open communication, right? And you deal with it right then and there, right? So someone gets in his vehicle, drives to the city and say, listen, there's 19 more trees to do. It's going to cost $19,000. City's either going to have their maintenance guys go do it today, or you're going to get a $19,000 change order, right? So yeah, you got to be proactive. You're right. You just do, right? So you want to get into it for one tree, no big deal, So, because at the end, Shane's probably got $30,000 or $40,000, and he gave them, right? And then ends up costing a lot of money. And we've all been guilty of that, by God. But at the end of these jobs, like I said a minute ago, I didn't care about future work anymore, because I was always the builders. I used to do work for the 23rd biggest builder in the United States. And I'll say it again, the 23rd biggest builder in the United States. So I did work up and down California. Of course, in the very beginning, it was always like, I want the next job. I want the next job. I want the next job. Fuck the next job. I want to make money on this one. But they always held that carrot, right? It was so easy for us to go after that carrot. And at some point, you're like, forget this, right? You guys are unscheduled. All I do is fight fires every day. And then we think about some of these jobs, you just wake up and your day gets predetermined by the phone ringing, or now it's texting, right? Oh, this is happening. Oh, that's happening. This is happening. This is rescheduled. This happened because of rain. That happened because someone didn't pour the concrete. That happened because a sub didn't come in, right? And then that destroys your pre-planned day. So, for us, weekly meetings, daily meetings, critical path schedules, all these things that are determined on the success of me making money and being efficient. So, yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing is that, I'm going to mention right here, to where, you did an okay job But, the city, and this is very typical, the cities a lot of times don't have a well-designed, they haven't hired an electrical engineer or an architect or a lighting designer. They haven't hired anybody. They have zero scope of work. So it's a design build product. And then they fucking put you in a box that says you have a $300,000 budget. Where did they even get that number? Did they just pick it out of the air? That was the last penny that they had, right? And the job should have been 450,000 probably, but now it's 300,000, and you get so psyched up mentally that, oh my God, this job is going to be unbelievable, and you try to make it fit, right? Some of the worst decisions we can do is trying to make it fit. Some of the worst jobs I ever did were having somebody tell me, because I wanted a job and I'm too high, I got to reduce my number. The more times I looked at that quote, the more times I could take money out of it. And then, of course, all you do is lose money, So scope of work, they don't have it, no problem. It's a design build. Here's the scope. It's very simple, right? And those are all with submittals, nothing AI, obviously, right? But submittals, everything is, true. This is a representation. It's not the scale, right? Yes, I showed you a typical pole. Here's the thing. It's in your detailed, which is not hard. The detail shows square. We're going to use round. It shows a base plate. That's an option, right? I mean, and it's not your fault. Cities can always go find the goddamn money, and it's bullshit when they say they don't have the money and not to exceed 300,000. We don't care, right? It's not my fault. We're going to exceed it. It's like when you said earlier about whatever you said at the very beginning, Matt, about homeowner wants this. Well, imagine if you're a painter. I've hired a painter to paint my house. And you're going to paint my house. When I sit there and go, hey, can you paint my 2-car garage? Right? He doesn't throw that in. He doesn't. I don't say, well, I thought you were throwing it in. That is such a lame excuse people try to tell me. Go fuck yourself. Right? Of course I have to pay for the 2-car garage. I only asked you to paint the house. Right? It's so ridiculous. I remember back in the day, which, you guys don't even remember this, but we didn't have Google. We had yellow pages. I would bring a yellow page phone book with me, and the homeowner's like, well, can't you throw it in? I would literally hand them the phone book and tell them there's 1,000 electrical contractors in this phone book. Call one of them. I'm sure one of them will come out and do this for free. I'm sure they will, right? And it would just, the look on their face was shocking, because what a stupid statement. I'm sure one of them will do it for free. Why will I do it for free? But we always have a tendency to always do shit for free, right? Go to the supermarket. They'll throw in the fucking gallon of milk. Go to Ford, call the dealership and ask them to do your brakes for free while they're doing an oil change. It's just it's idiotic.
You're right.
Right.
We all do it, right? We're there.
But we all do it. We all do it.
I guess could we relate this to if we take it to more of a normalized job for our typical listeners, right? I think we could relate this to the new construction lighting, right? Because I know, obviously Nate and you and I have talked a lot about this. I've done a few new construction, whether it's been pergolas, cabanas, and I did not charge enough because I charge as if I could just do the job. It's never to just do the job. You go when the hardscapers behind, or the wood guys behind, I had one with all the layout schematics where I needed the wires. They just didn't do it. They said, oh yeah, we forgot. And then and then I tell the homeowner, like, well, that's how can I do that? That's not my fault. And, you go back and forth, and it's like, well, shit, I want the job. I'm going to figure it out. But I mean, could you do a similar, or if you were working with a residential client, Nate, on a new construction, whether it's a pool cabana or whatever, can you add those same line items? Like, hey, every visit is this, or delayed is this. What would you recommend there?
I recommend don't do new construction. Fuck new construction. That's what I tell you. I hate new construction. I don't do it because you're going to do all those things. Put all those what if scenarios in, and you're going to go, I'm going to charge you $1,000 for a trip charge. One, you're never going to get the job. Thank God. And two, if you did get the job, they're not going to pay you all that fucking money because they don't have the additional money. Right? So it's a fight. And you guys know this, and anybody that ever comes to one of my seminars that I hold at my house, I did new construction for my neighbor. I think I had 17 trips over there, and I would have never done the job right? Because of it. So what you just said, Matt, they don't do it. They cut the wire. They did this. They added this, right? And every other day, hey, can you come up here? Can you come up here? Can you come up here? Imagine if that job wasn't my neighbor's and it was 25 minutes away, an hour and a half away with traffic there and back. It's a lose, right?
Yeah, the same thing on that one job I'm talking about. They changed the roof.
You know,
They changed how it was. So the lights that I had ready to go, ready to rock and roll, I'm like, we can't light this roof. It's gonna look stupid.
Yeah.
And what do I charge the client for those? Like, well, hey, you signed the deal for do them,
right?
But I can't do them
So-
now. Who pays?
So at the, I stopped doing new construction a long time ago. Won't do it. Don't care. Don't want to do it. Don't care. Just ain't gonna do it.
And let's
Right,
be
'cause you-
clear what you need by new construction, because there is a difference in my mind. What about like a new construction home and you're doing the 8 to 10 uplights? Would you do that? Hey, job's done, I'll go in, or it's just new construction like the cabanas and pergolas and all that, gazebos?
So I think it's really a good question, but so I think it's pretty simple. New construction to me is a progression of, sequence of building. They're digging trenches, they're pouring concrete, they're putting up forms, they're standing walls, they have interior walls, exterior going on the walls, whether it be siding or stucco, interior drywalling. So there is a whole period of 15 or different subs that are going to fuck your work up, right? Where if you're building a new construction house, I have nothing to do with the house. Yeah, no problem. I'm doing the landscaping. I mean, that's typically every job that I do, right? But yeah, something that I have to be deeply involved with scheduling, right? Pouring concrete, right? Standing up walls. Framers are cutting. They're adding different fireplaces. Now they've cut my wire, right? And then there's so many different things that you have to do to wring out the wires to make sure these, carpenters didn't cut your wires, because they cut wires all the time. Or the lath and plaster guys cut your wires. They put nails through your wires because, they're nailing on all the lath and plath. I mean, it's always your fault. It's like, how can it be my fault? I didn't cut my own wire. Do you think I would sabotage my wire? Homer's look, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, oh my God, right?
Right.
Just talk about getting angry. I mean, this is just a total sad story, but it just reminds me how angry I got one day. I used to just do residential contracting, and this lath and plaster up in Ramona Estates, they just kept covering up my light fixture boxes and exterior outlets. I remember one day I literally took a sledgehammer and I beat like 1 million holes in this wall. Like, oh, I think my box is here. Of course, I know it's over there. And I literally beat 50 holes on the side of this home, destroyed this home. That's how angry I was. And that contractor, when he came up to me, he saw how angry I was. He never said a word to me. Now, later, we had a big meeting and it was a big fight, right? But it just, you get angry, because these people are covering. I mean, when you cut a wire, right, they're doing it with intent, right? Because they're pissed off because the wire's in the way. So they're like, oh, fuck this goddamn wire. And they just cut it, right? So now it's just a battle. I hate it. Just glad I don't have to do it anymore. Oh.
All right. So long story short, lesson learned, right? Make sure there's exemptions in every proposal. If this happens, then that. If we're gonna trim these 5 trees, the next trees are gonna cost this. If they're not done within 72 hours, we're doing them. If you delay us, more than 24 hours on any given change order or draw check, we will not finish, or we're going to have to work overtime and it's going to cost X.
Hang on, Shane. I want to make sure you have to state it out. The contract states that we have a completion date of November 1st due to a grand opening, whatever the fuck it is. Based upon this schedule, here's a sequence of events that we need, that's going to occur and need to happen, right? And it's a critical path schedule, right? And it's this, and this, whatever this. We have to do 100 feet a day, which means we have to shut down the street. We have to do 100 feet a day, which means we have to have access to the sidewalk. We have to do 100 feet a day, which means the trees need to be trimmed, right? So based upon this, we're able to meet this date. Anything that prohibits us from meeting this date requires a stoppage. we need a reasonable amount of time, which I'm going to say is 8 hours for you to get back to me. 8 hours. You have to put a number in there, right? Not 24 hours, 8 fucking hours, right? That's how serious this schedule is, right? That gets everybody's attention, and you have meetings, and the city's going to go, how the hell can we get back with you with 8 hours? You're right. We're going to have a daily meeting. We're going to have a meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 o'clock, because there's going to be issues that come up that you want this grand opening November 1st. You have to make this commitment to me, right? Else it'll never in a million years happen. So you have to be very clear and articulate in what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Good. I get it.
Good lessons for sure.
So, but also on when you not to undermine or diminish the fact that, of course, you're going to have the exclusions, but also your scope of work has to be very detailed because you're the design builder. So just like if they hired you, you have to put your hat on to where you got to pretend that they hired you as an architect, they hired you as an electrical engineer. So you would, and so if they were just hiring you, Shane, I need you to write the specs and the standards and the scope of work because we're going to hire Nate. You have to do that to give me everything that I can have an accurate bid of what the city expects and wants. So even though you're hiring yourself, you have to put that in your scope of work. So it's clear to the city, it's clear to your guys, right? Because the scope of work is really a plan, right? Of how you do things. And, scope of work includes, right? How you going to put the steel poles up? Well, you got to have a footing detail. Yeah. How big are the anchor bolts? They're 3/4 inch. They're 7/8. They got a nut on the top, nut on the bottom. They're galvanized, hot dipped, right? They go down 36 inches with sonotube, right? Not a hole in the fucking ground, but with sonotube that have to be aerated so there's no air pockets so the streetlights don't fall over later, right? And then it has to have a base cap. All of these details, right? Have to be very clear for everybody, including your guys and or the subcontractors that you have out. So when they bid, right, the digging of the footings and putting in the streetlight poles, and they have a clear understanding of what you're doing. Because I know you have said earlier today and before that the streetlights were all bent due to the subcontractor because they didn't have anything level. Thank God you had anchor bolts or the nuts top and bottom, so they were able to go by and fix it. But everything has to be clear.
Yep. All right. Awesome. So there you have it. AI cost Shane Glo Daddy Duffy $16,000. Moral of the story, use AI as a tool, but double check it, especially on any job, right? I like to say to some, clients, I'm going to treat you the same way I treat my highest end client. Because when you treat all your clients as if they are your highest end, it's funny how much more of that higher end you attract. Anyways, with that being said, we are the Lighting Trade School. This is our podcast. Check us out, lightingtradeschool.com. We've got a February training with all three of us in San Diego area, California, late February. Check it out. It's right there on the website. First thing you see. Boys, hope you have a great week. Let's all go make some damn money.
Have a great day, though. See ya.